I'm 20 years old and I'm helping build one of the biggest sales companies in my industry. And the only reason why I was able to get here is literally because I chose to take a leap of faith last year and skip out on college. In this video, I'll explain what made me confident in making this decision and why it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And I remember so vividly how I felt, before college. I was in high school and essentially I was just anxious all of the time. Looking back on it, I feel like a huge reason why I was anxious is because I had two fears, kind of pulling on me at the same exact time, right? So one fear was the fear of failure, the fear of trying to go off and start a business or do something a little bit different and it not working out. I just remember sitting down in my English class with my friends around me and just thinking to myself, as we were literally working on this assignment, it's like, what if I decide to not go and I make the wrong decision and I end up having to go back to school after things don't work out and I'm just so far behind. Essentially, I just wasted a ton of time and that scared me a lot. And then this other fear that I had pulling me kind of from the other side was this fear of living a normal life, right? The traditional route of going to college, going down the traditional path of working a regular job, working a 9 to 5 or some random desk job. And that scared me so much. Like both of these things just terrified me. So I felt anxious all of the time. I didn't know what to do. And I genuinely thought that something was wrong with me. I couldn't just figure out why I was so indecisive. I was the only person in my grade who chose to not go to college, and seeing all of my friends go out, meet new people, go to parties, do all these things that are seemingly fun, I just felt like I was missing out so much. And I was genuinely questioning myself. I'm like, fuck, did I make the wrong decision? This was literally always in the back of my mind, not only from myself, but even from external people. So if I'll hang out with my friends, talk to their parents, it was the same thing every single time, right? They'd always ask me, oh, what school are you going to? Or what are you studying? And I'd always be like, fuck. But this made me pretty anxious to just go out in any social setting, especially if there was going to be some type of adults around at the time, just because I just feel this conversation sparking, and it never failed. I always thought this and it would always happen to me. It pretty much just started as, I'm going to take a gap semester. I'm going to start later on. And during this gap, I'm going to really try to make things work with the business, maybe travel around and actually get to experience life a little bit. And this really ties in with this feeling that I essentially had this entire time, right? Ever since I could remember, ever since I was probably 10 years old in elementary school, I had this level of delusional belief that regardless of what happened, although I had these fears and these different things, that I knew I was going to be successful. And I say it out loud and words could literally not describe how strong this belief was, and it still is, right? That I could genuinely achieve anything that I possibly can. Essentially, when making that decision, I asked myself, is the 80-year-old version of myself, the 90-year-old who's on his deathbed, who's experienced all of life, is he gonna think, man, I'm glad, I kind of just went straight to college, the normal route, kind of went the safe route? Or is that version really embodying and actually genuinely really immersing yourself in that moment? Is he gonna think, I am so glad I took a risk on myself. I'm so glad I got to, experience life and actually be fucking different. So although it was scary, that's pretty much what led me to making that full decision. As you can imagine, that gap semester, that gap year ended up pretty much becoming indefinite. I ended up working a 9 to 5, right? Having to fund myself. I also didn't just want to be one of those guys who pretty much just wasn't doing anything, but at the same time as working this 9 to 5, I was doing everything in my power to make things work with a business. And that business to start was SMMA. So having a social media marketing agency, I bought a course and I'd literally sit down just trying to learn how this whole entrepreneurship journey actually works. And to make a long story short, the SMMA didn't really work out. And this was after a year of cycles of procrastination, doing things that felt like work but weren't actually work, right? So just trying to build websites or come up with a company name rather than just outreaching and trying to get clients. This first initial failure actually led me to one of the biggest turning points in my life. I actually met the person who came to be my very first mentor. His name is JJ, and he coached sales. I ended up investing pretty much all of my savings to work with him one-on-one and really learn this skill. And after, having a lot of these calls with him, just learning the ins and outs, the basics, how to land my first sales opportunity, I started off by outreaching to tons of companies, sitting in my 9 to 5 at my desk, waiting, looking around to see if my manager would pass by and see me working on something else. I ended up landing my first ever role and did that at the same time of my 9 to 5. So I was basically setting appointments I was in his Instagram, in his DMs, and with doing this, I actually was able to make my first $500 in a week. At the time, I was like, holy shit. After a year of trying, I just made my first dollar online. It was just insane. It was like this indescribable feeling. I'm like, wow, it really reinforced this delusional belief that I had. That's like, wow, I genuinely can fucking do this. And that's really when I had my first taste of freedom. This led me to actually fully committing and being able to leave my 9 to 5. I just remember being on the drive home. I recorded a video on Snapchat and I was just like, holy shit, I just quit my 9 to 5. It ended up being, I'd say, the best decision of my life. And the crazy thing about it is that it was genuinely terrifying, right? I was leaving pretty much everything I knew, my level of security of making $1,300 a month, my friends at work. And it's funny because looking back, you wouldn't expect it to still be scary, but it was. Regardless, that changed essentially the trajectory of my entire life. And there's so many benefits that actually go to really having, more of that self-education. But I'd say one of the biggest ones is the freedom that actually comes with that, right? The freedom to be able to choose what you want to do, right? There's generally so many people out there, so many mentors that will help you succeed in anything that you want to do, instead of going tens of thousands of dollars in debt doing a career that you don't really know or you're not really sure of, and use that same money to actually take a risk and investment on yourself with literally any type of guidance or mentor. You get to have the real level of world experience that most people don't even get. And I feel like if you can actually go to another place, step outside of your comfort zone and just learn and see how different people live, it literally increases every single aspect of your life. One of the biggest ones for me was the gratitude. Being able to go to a place like India and see how people live there made me realize, and as soon as I came back home, I am so thankful for what I actually have. And then on top of that, you actually get to develop skills that pay you immediately. I'd say the thing that probably changed my life the most was the people and the friendships that I was actually able to build. And I was never able to fully find those people who I felt aligned with when I was in high school. And now pretty much all of my closest friends are making significantly more money than me. But the money aside, just the level of depth and connection we actually have from going down such similar paths was honestly unreal. And I remember before I was like, fuck, I don't know if I ever be able to find these people, but the world has this funny way of bringing these people towards you when you actually make the decision to actually have that trust in yourself. And when I think about it before, just hearing the word sales, my immediate thought was like, oh dude, I'm not a sales guy. Like I mentioned, I started off with an agency, and essentially a huge part of why I didn't get the results I was looking for is because I was trying to start a business without actually having any reliable skill set to build on. So after making the transition, finding my mentor, JJ, I chose to develop a skill that would genuinely serve me for the best of my life. Like a huge beauty behind it. It's not something that I had to be married to, right? I didn't have to do sales forever. I don't want to do sales forever, but sales will always be a skill in your life that if you develop, if you learn how to actually understand people, if you learn how to communicate, it just opens so many more doors for you down the line with whatever career change you want to make, with relationships, friendships. And I ended up falling in love with it. And now I'm blessed enough to, make money online, just taking Zoom calls and actually changing people's lives. From making that decision, I've been able to make over $10,000 a month, but most importantly, I've been able to gain a real level of awareness. And when I say that, I want you to realize that there is so many things in life that you are currently not aware of. For me, one of the biggest things that I became aware of was that you could genuinely develop superpowers to get you what you want in life. If you can gain more awareness and just continue to learn new things, you are essentially going to have so much control over your own reality. Because if you don't have control over your own reality, the chances are that somebody else is controlling your reality for you. And this has allowed me to open the door to my current goals, right? And like what I'm actually striving for now. Being here so soon and having goals like this, like so soon, and knowing they're achievable feels unreal. And the first one for me is going to be earning $100,000 in 1 month. And while actually documenting the process of getting there is going to be actually enjoying the process, right? Something I like to call youth maxing, right? Maxing out my youth, not falling to either extreme. I feel like society pushes you so hard to either work super hard and just lock yourself in a room throughout all of your 20s, and then after you're 30 and you're successful, and then you can enjoy it. Or the other opposite side that we spoke about, which is going to college, partying, living life up, and then working a job you hate for the rest of your life. When I think about it, I can have both, right? Because I have this own control over my reality. Build a real business, build a brand while actually enjoying the process, while traveling, while spending time with my closest friends and having new experiences, never saying no to opportunities that I could look back on when I'm in my deathbed and say, I'm so glad I lived not only my 20s, but my entire life to the fullest. And this all ties into like the overall goal of self-actualization, which is pretty much the process of living a fulfilling life, becoming my most authentic self, and actually having a feeling of purpose. If you were in my shoes, if you don't know what to do, whether it's with making a decision of college or to leave your job, whatever it is, just know and think, what would my 90-year-old self who's on their deathbed, who's experienced, life, what would they want me to do right now? And if you could put yourself in their shoes, you're going to make decisions that lead you to living a more fulfilling life. And by the way, if you want to learn sales, learn from my mentors as well as myself, in the description, you're going to be able to find a link where you could book a call and talk to me directly one-on-one, and we could see if it makes sense. I appreciate you watching. Talk soon.